So I know this video is like 2 weeks late, but I still really wanted to do it, and honestly, after seeing a lot of reactions to Death Note 2017, I kind of want to put something new into the argument. So, a lot of people are very angry at this movie. A lot of people think it's the worst anime film since Dragon Ball Evolution. A lot of people think it completely shits all over the source material, and there are some people who are defending it as being okay-ish. But generally, as a rule, most people are pretty mad at this film. I'm here to explain why I think this movie really doesn't work and why it's pissed so many people off. I don't think that it's because it doesn't adapt the source material right. I think it's because it doesn't go away from it enough. Now, let me explain. Like I said, part 2 of this review is a spoiler-filled, just complete comparison, weebing, geeking out to the original. So everything I say is completely spoiler and completely based on the bias of the anime is better. Also, this is going to be very impromptu, so I'm just going to rattle off ideas. Fair warning. So first up, I think one thing the film really doesn't grasp is that it's not animated in a weird way. I rewatched the movie the other day, and with the more managed expectations, had a better time with it, but dear God, some of the choices in the film's structure, just from a technical perspective, are horrible. One of the big problems is the editing. The film has this weird, choppy, all over the place Dutch tilt style it uses sporadically. This, I think, is meant to be very similar to anime, which can also be very frantically paced and very all over the place. The thing is that, though, in Death Note, any sort of weird editing choice or any sort of out there way of showing something was done for a very specific reason, and that reason was that it needed to feel epic. Death Note tries to be a show, or is, depending on how you think about it, is a show about a dude who wants to rule the world. But instead of being the cheesy sort of Saturday morning, hey, the world will be mine, no, it wants to put the weight in there. It wants the situation to feel epic and serious. Light Yagami could kill anyone so long as he has a name, and the show needed to tell you that. It needed to present it, and it didn't just want to do it in exposition. It wanted you to have the full emotional experience of the terror of it. Does this always work? No. Check out all the potato chip memes. But the thing is that was the idea. Here, though, the editing is never used at a scene that is really that terrifying. It's used during scene transitions and showing off setting, which creates a weird tone when the film slows down and wants to tell you stuff. It means that you never really know what mindset to be in. The same thing goes for the horror element in it when it gets graphic and rated R level stuff. In the original Death Note, for the most part, Light mostly kills people with heart attacks. That's because Death Note isn't focused on the way the people die. It's not the fact that so many people are dying. It's why Light is doing it. It's everything that goes into it. It's all the backstory of it. Because of this, showing off the death is almost pointless at that degree. This is something this movie doesn't understand as well. Like, it does these gruesome rated R killings, which would be fine, but it just doesn't really add up, because then it's abandoned, and then all the deaths are just quick and straight. If it was consistently a gore fest, I'm not saying it would be good, but I think it would work a lot better than it does. From there, though, I think a lot of the changes actually work out okay. First up, Light Turner to Light Yagami. I, like most people, was not in favor of the Nat Wolf or Matt Wolf casting. I don't think he fits Light Yagami at all. The thing about Light is, he's supposed to be, in the anime, he's supposed to be charming, witty, charismatic, intelligent, and handsome. That's because Light is supposed to be like the devil himself. That idea that he can entice you and put you on his side. Light is also meant to represent the ideal Japanese teenager, someone who excels at his studies, comes from a good family, and looks like a model person in society. This is because Light's true personality is that he's selfish, arrogant, full of himself, and basically a spoiled douchebag. That's because you're not supposed to sympathize with Light Yagami. Rather, you can see his thinking or not. At the end of the day, he is the bad guy, and they don't try and portray him otherwise. Why do you think like the first 2 or 3 minutes of the show is him complaining about how like he doesn't like the world or how ugly it is? It's supposed to separate him from you, but always keep that sense that could you be like this? That is the question of the character. Light Turner is not this. Light Turner is kind of this sort of weird, socially awkward, not very handsome, wouldn't stand out in a crowd, dude you wouldn't consider. Once they get the film going, this kind of works. They've made the necessary changes to how the character should behave. He is in the corner. He is socially awkward. And in American society, we explore the concept of the ideal person going the wrong way more often. Therefore, they're kind of screwed in either direction. They can't simply rely on Light being an archetype that's been turned on its head. So because of this, they actually do things to kind of make it work. Light is an awkward bully kid, and though I'm kind of getting sick of that, you also throw in with the mother dying. Now Light isn't just a kid being picked on. He's someone who's angry. He's someone who went through something he shouldn't have to. And they bring in something that is relatable to an American audience. Justice wasn't served. We here in this country, we keep trying to tell ourselves that the law will fix things, and yeah, it doesn't always. I'm not going to go on anything political, but that's just reality. And it's something that affects us as a culture and a society. Light is a representation of this. The guy who killed his mother got away with it. And based on what it looks like, he got away with it in a big bad way. So Light is going to be angry. You could see him getting pushed into this. Honestly, they really shouldn't have made it that his first kill was the bully, because it was just a generic bully. And that just makes Light kind of just this generic victim kid. But if you made it that his first kill was the guy who killed his mother, now that's the set-off point. He got revenge. He did the world a favor. He took out someone who doesn't deserve to live. That could then push him into that new direction. But when you make the first kill the bully, it just sort of takes that away from it. And then Light's personality gets kind of interesting. Him being a socially awkward nerd comes into play with how he comes up with his ideas for making himself Kira. The anger plays into how he kills people. And because he's not an ego-driven sociopath, he has issues with killing police. He has issues with killing cops. One issue I have with Light in the original, well, not really an issue, but at times I think sort of his morals and stuff don't always add up in quite a way I think the anime wanted to. For example, he killed L out of hubris. Light in the American version refuses to kill cops or avoid to kill anyone innocent. This makes him a little more relatable to the audience, but it also keeps what kind of person he is intact. He didn't go in this horrible direction because he's an evil person. He went in this horrible direction because he's a mad person. It goes back to that idea we see in things like The Punisher and a lot of other anti-hero stories where it's you're just one bad day from making that bad turn. And I think that for what the film is trying to do, that is okay. Honestly, the character doesn't really get ruined until the end of the movie when he finally does do a big Light Yagami type plan, and, well, I just don't buy that this guy would do that. I just don't buy that he would think of that. I don't really buy that he would lead to this. I was with everything until it was revealed to be a big thing, because it just completely does a 360 on the character. Then moving on to the other big important character, L. Actually, I kind of like this guy. He's not the same sort of weird. He's weird and he's different, but he's weird and he's different in a way that can be given to us over the course of 90 minutes. Like, they definitely shortened the character, and again, because he's not animated, you can't make him as weird on the visual sense. Could you maybe have gotten a skinnier, maybe more weirdo-looking type guy, instead of an actor who, honestly, probably could have played actual Light Yagami? Honestly, Nat Wolff probably would have physically been a better L. But this guy did bring a lot to the part. He plays more of this crazy, eccentric, always needs to come up with a new plan L. I like little things like he says that he's awake for like 72 hours. I like that there's always this unnatural feel to him when he walks into a room. That is captured very well here, and certain other additions to the character. When Watari dies, and L actually goes into this very emotional scene, I don't remember this, but I'm pretty certain L has no emotions in the original Death Note. This actually played out really well in this. You get the sense that this is a guy who's always one step ahead, who's always above everyone else. And the minute that's taken away from him, he breaks down. I'm not saying it makes the best L performance I've ever seen, but it makes for a really relatable character, and it kind of humanizes someone who is very separated from the rest of us. The weirdness of him is still intact and all that, but you really do get a sense that this is kind of what he would be like. I think the scene, like at the end of the movie, where he's got the Death Note page, I'm really invested. I'm really curious to see what happens next. We never will, because this movie has been criticized, but I find it kind of interesting. Other than that, side characters, who cares? Willem Dafoe is perfect as Ryuk, but as everyone's pointing out, he's in the movie 10 minutes. Certain changes to Ryuk's personality I wasn't crazy about. Like how I always felt like in the anime, Ryuk is just a bro. Like, he would flat out tell you if he killed a bunch of guys or not. So keeping the secret just because he wants to see what Mia would do, or Misa, or whatever, I don't know. A little bit of that's up to interpretation. Then you actually get to Mia, and oh god, Mia completely steals this movie. Some people hate her. I think she's really fascinating because she's Light Yagami in this. Think about it for a minute. She is the very good-looking sort of model student type. Okay, we don't learn a lot about her, but everything points to that she would be that perfect person who mentally works out why it's okay for her to be a monster. It honestly wouldn't shock me if in earlier drafts of the script, maybe her and Light were the same character. Honestly, that's what they should have done. I much find Mia more interesting than anybody else in this, and it's because she is that borderline inhuman level crazy person. I think she's a real interesting character. No, she's nothing like Misa from the anime, but to be fair, a lot of people don't like Misa. I thought this was a really interesting idea, but then what does it do? It just creates a villain we need to beat. And honestly, this is really where the movie falls apart. It can't figure out what to keep, what to get rid of, what to sort of stay, so certain things end up staying intact when they shouldn't. Like, Light comes up with a big scheme at the end. Like, L has a crazy backstory that went nowhere. Like, Mia basically needs to die because we need Light to take the show. And that's kind of what ultimately fails in this movie. This is not a terrible film. It is not a particularly bad film. It's a meh film. And in my opinion, that's actually worse than being bad, because it means that ultimately there's just not a lot to talk about in either direction. People's hate and anger, I think in a lot of ways, is based off of the fact that it isn't as good as the anime, or it's different from the anime. But ultimately, I think if it was like Speed Racer, where it was an anime from 40 years ago and anyone who was a fan has moved on, it would be different. But the truth is, they tried to adapt Death Note, one of the most popular, influential animes of the last 20 years, if not of all time. And you know what? I respect them for going out there and trying it. But ultimately, you needed a director, and I know the director is a Death Note fan. You needed someone who could separate fandom from getting the script done. You needed someone who would understand what to keep and not be driven by personal connections to things. Sometimes having someone who doesn't care about the source material is fine, so long as you have that passionate, into it person next to them always to sort of create that balance. And that didn't happen here. And ultimately, that is why Death Note is bad. I think it just can't decide what it wants to do, and also that music was stupid. But other than that, let me know what you think. Sorry this video got out so late. It's been a wacky couple weeks by me. But tell me below. And as always, click to like and click to subscribe, and check the movie out for yourself if you haven't already.